Right. Okay.
We'll go to lesson again. Right. So these are the some of standards which use fair value. Hmm. Right. This is the definition. Now you can go to your summary and you can write this definition. මේව ලියාගන්න ලස්සනට. You can write them. මේක ලියාගන්න ලස්සන ලියාගන්න. පාට පාටින් ලියාගන්න. Then we'll take one by one. Right. Okay. I hope you have written this definition in the summary here. So there are unique features in the definition. So we'll take one by one now. Price. That is exit price, as I mentioned. Price that would be received to sell. Received to sell means, disposal. No? Sell means disposal. Exit price. Then when it comes to liability, paid to transfer. Again, exit. Right? Then orderly transaction. What do you mean by orderly? Orderly in the sense there is no any pressure from any other groups. Normal advertising campaign. What is the price? That is the price. Normal advertising campaign. So there is a normal something, no? Normal advertising campaign in a firm. With that normal condition, what would be the price? So that's the orderly transaction. Market has time to operate and no duress. No duress, right? We'll take that orderly transaction further and discuss. Then when it comes to market participants should be knowledgeable, willing, able, and independent. Buyers and sellers, they are knowledgeable. If we are going to sell something unknowledgeable person, let's say you are going to sell something to mental issue person. අපි හිතමු සමහරලාට එච්චර හොඳට මොලේ වෙන්න නැහැ. ඔයාගේ මොබයිල් ෆෝන් එක ඔයා විකුණන්න උත්සාහ කරනවා. ඒක වටින්නේ රුපියල් ලක්ෂයයි. ඔයා බොරු කියලා ඔයා එයාට විකුණනවා ලක්ෂ 2කට. එයාට සල්ලි තියෙනවා. හැබැයි මොලේ නැහැ. මොලේ අවුලක් ගිහිල්ලා. That is not fair value. That is unfair. That's why in the definition, market participant should be independent, knowledgeable, willing. Independent කියන්නේ දැන් ඔයා විකුණන ඔයාගේ මොනවා හරි එකක් ඔයාගේ නංගිට එහෙම නැත්නම් මල්ලිට. That's not independent. ඔයා විකුණන රුපියල් ලක්ෂයක් ඇත්තටම වටිනවා. ඔයා දෙන්නේ රුපියල් 10,000 මල්ලිනේ. Not independent. You are selling to your dependents. Dependence in sense something like that. Try to understand what I'm trying to say. Market participants should be independent, knowledgeable, willing and able. Both parties should be willing. දැන් ඔයා යම් කිසි දෙයක් විකුණනවා ඒගොල්ලෝ ආස නැහැ ගන්න. බලෙන් දෙනවා බලෙන්. Then that transaction is not that fair value එතකොට. And willing and able. Right, market participant. I hope that is clear. Then measurement date. Date of the transaction would be assumed to occur. That is the measurement date. Right. So this is market-based measurement, not entity-specific measurement. Remember this fair valuation standard explains fair value measurement. That is market-based measurement, not entity-specific measurement. Okay, market-based. Right. So these are the items in the definition: the price, the assets or liability, orderly, transaction, market participants. Right. So we'll take, as I told you, we would be taking one by one and explain. Now we'll take exit price. Already I discussed this. Entity disposing asset or transfer liability. So that's the exit price. That's the exit price, right? We normally measure assets or liabilities. right? Income and expense also would be measured now as per SLFRS 15. We recognize revenue. Revenue should be measured at fair value, right? So particularly for assets and liabilities. So characteristics of assets or liabilities. So there are features, assets as well as liability. There are features and we should measure them. So when it comes to measurement, yes, fair value is one of methods to measure, right? So these are characteristics. Condition and the location. Now, let's say you have a land at Colombo 7. Land at Colombo 7. Fair value would be changed based on the location or not. And the condition, huh? And you are using BMW, but that is a used one. Used one and the original one, new one, brand new one. Is there any price difference? Is there any price difference? Yes, of course. Why not? Huh? So when we measure fair value, when we consider fair valuation, so these are factors, these are the characteristics that we need to consider when it comes to fair valuation, right? Condition, location, then restrictions. Sometimes there are restrictions. Now, for an instance, there is a land. On the land, there are high tension wires installed by Ceylon Electricity Board. When we construct something on the land, we need to get the permission from electricity board, right? Sometimes electricity board not allow that landlord to construct 2 stories building, maximum 1 story. So what would happen to the fair value of the land? The land value would be decreased due to that restriction. That's a restriction. I explain one example. So there are such situations, right? Okay. Now, when it comes to assets and liabilities, we would discuss standalone assets or liabilities or else group of assets and liabilities. When it comes to group of assets, that explains nicely in SLFRS 36, cash generating unit. Cash generating unit. What do you mean by cash generating unit? CGU. CGU. Sorry. CGU. Under definition, you can write it. CGU. Cash generating unit means what? Smallest identifiable assets and liabilities which can generate cash independently from other assets and liabilities. I will take an example. 138 bus. We have a bus. We have bus only. Can I generate money from this bus? Can I generate money? I have only the bus. I purchase only the bus. Can I generate money from this bus? Yeah, no anything.
Can't.
Can't. What else that we need to acquire to generate cash?
Route permit.
Route permit, yes. That is an intangible asset. එතකොට මේ බස් එක ඕන one intangible asset. ඒ දෙක ඕන මේක සල්ලි එකතු කරගන්න. සල්ලි හම්බ කරන්න. එතකොට this is a cash generating unit. CGU. Right? Okay. I think you can understand what is a cash generating unit. Okay. So there are cash generating units. All that's the smallest identifiable assets, liabilities, which can generate cash independently from other assets. Right? Sometimes when we are going to get the fair value, we need to get the fair value for the cash generating unit, not the individual asset. Not the individual asset. Okay. So that's why we divide this one into two: standalone assets or liabilities and group of assets, a group of liabilities or group of assets or liabilities. Right? Okay. Right. Then we'll talk about orderly transaction. බලමු දැන් orderly transaction කියන්නේ මොකක්ද කියලා. Have a look on this orderly transaction. Transaction that assumes exposure to the market for a period before the measurement date to allow marketing activities that are usual and customary. ඒවා අනවශ්‍ය ලෙස කරන marketing නෙමෙයි. The customary and the normal, usual, for transactions involving such assets or liabilities, and it is not a forced transaction. It is not a forced transaction. එක බල කරලා කරන transaction එකක් නොවිය යුතුයි. That's ඒ orderly transaction එක කියන එක පැහැදිලි දැන්. Right? Normal marketing campaign එක යටතේ normal customary ඒවත් අදාළ විදියට forced transaction එකක් නොවන transaction එකකට තමයි අපි කියන්නේ orderly transaction එකක් කියලා. Orderly transaction. Right. Now, there are two markets. So orderly transactions can happen in two markets. Two markets. Number one, principal market. Number two, most advantageous market. So better to write that one. That's very important. Go to orderly transaction, markets, principal, most advantageous. Most advantageous market. Let's say Arali Enterprise is selling bakery products. Arali Enterprise is selling bakery products to a few districts, let's say southern province, western, and north province. Right? Southern, western, north. When we sell southern province, normally that's our factory is located in southern. Quantity wise, we are selling 10,000 quantity buns. Western, let's say 2000. No, Northern province, let's say 500 units. Right? Then so there is a selling price of bun. You can understand in Southern province there is a selling price. Then transaction price. Transaction price එකක් තියෙනවානේ. In addition to transaction price, we have transport price. Transaction price as well as මොකද්ද තියෙන පුතා? Transaction දෙකම ලියා ගන්න ඕන මට මෙතන. Transaction and transport. වෙන්න පුළුවන් එහෙම තියනවද නැද්ද කියන්නේ? selling price එකක් තියෙනවා, transaction price එකක් තියෙනවා, transport cost එකක් තියෙනවා නේ. තියෙනවද නැද්ද? තියෙනවද නැද්ද? We are selling our buns to 3 provinces. There are 3 markets, in other words. In this case, what is the principal market? මම මේ කියපු උදාහරණ වලට හිතෙන්නේ මොකද්ද principal market එක? What is the principal market? පොඩ්ඩක් හිතලා කියන්න. What is the principal market?
Southern province market.
මොකද්ද?
Southern province.
Southern province, yes. That is determined based on what? Quantity. Quantity. Remember, the principal market is identified based on the quantity. The market which has the highest quantity. හරිද? දැන් කියවල බලන්න principal market කියන්නේ මොකක්ද කියලා? Market with the greatest volume and the level of activity for the assets or liability. Greatest volume. Principal market එක determine කරන්නේ volume making. You understood that, right? Then we'll take most advantageous market. Most advantageous market. In the absence of principal market, we can identify the most advantageous market. How we are going to do that? Market that maximize the amount that would be received to sell the asset or minimize the amount that would be paid to transfer the liability after considering both transaction cost and the transport cost. හරි දැන් මෙතන අපි හිතමු දැන් in the absence of principal market හරිද අපි මේ තුනේම then volume data is not given කියලා. Now you cannot calculate, you cannot identify the principal market නේ. Then you need to identify the most advantageous market. හරි. එතන selling price එක මේකේ 100යි. මේකේ 120යි. මේකේ 150යි. Transport cost මේ transaction cost නේ 5යි. Transport cost එකත් 5යි. මේකේ transaction cost එක 10යි. මෙතන transport එකත් අපි හිතමු එකකට 10ක් යනවා කියලා. මෙතන transaction cost 10යි, transport cost 20. හරි. එතකොට පුතා what is the most advantageous market? Most advantage මේ selling price එකෙන් මේ දෙක අඩු කරන්න ඕනි. right? මේකෙන් මේ දෙක අඩු කරන්න. එතකොට වැඩිමෙන් එක තමයි most advantageous market වෙන්නේ. ඒතර 100න් පළවෙනි එක southern province එක 100න් 10ක් ගියාම 80යි 90යි. Western province එක 120න් 20ක් ගිහාම 100යි. Northern province එක 150න් 30ක් ගිහාම 120යි. එතකොට මොකද්ද most advantageous market? Northern province. Most advantageous market is Northern province based on the given information, right? Is that clear? තේරුණාද ඔයගොල්ලන්ට? Did you understand how to identify the principal market and the most advantageous market?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Right. හරි. දැන් ඔයගොල්ලෝ බලන්න ඇති දැන් market දෙක අඳුනගත්ත එක හරි. After identifying the market, you should know the fair value. How to calculate fair value? දැන් market එක අඳුනගත්ත එක හරි. ඒ market එකේ බනිස් ගෙඩියක fair value එක හොයාගන්න කොහොමද? මොකද අඩු කරන්නේ? So there is a crucial thing that you should understand. So transaction cost has been explained here. Transaction cost and the transport cost. Look at this. Transaction cost is this. That's incremental direct cost. Maybe stamp duty, maybe lawyer fee, something like that. The cost to sell an asset or transfer liability and principal or most advantageous market for the assets or liability that are directly attributable to disposal of the asset or transfer of the liability. Right? That's a incremental cost. If we are not doing that transaction, we can eliminate that. We are not going to do that transaction. We are not going to incur that particular cost, right? That's transaction price cost. Okay. Transport cost කියන එක අවබෝධයිනේ අමාරුවක් නැහැනේ. Transport එක incurred transport asset from the current location to the its principal or most advantageous market. The most advantageous market එක will ජෙෆ්න නම් Northern province නම් ඒතර අපේ location එකකින් නම් එහෙට යවන්න එපා පුතා බඩු. There is a transport cost, right? හරිනේ? හරි. දැන් ඊළඟ මේක බලන්න. අන්න මේක තමයි කතාව. Both are used to determine the most advantageous market. දැන් principal market එකට අපි use කරේ මොකද්ද පුතා? In order to identify the principal market, what we were using?
Volume.
Volume. එක හරිනේ? In order to identify the most advantageous market, we considered both transaction cost and the transport cost. හරිනේ? හරිනේ? අන්න අතන ඒක පැහැදිලි හරි? However, only transport costs are deducted to calculate the fair value. Transaction costs are not adjusted in measuring fair value, right? Only we should deduct transport cost to identify the fair value of that respective market. හරි? මේක හොඳට ඔලුවට ගන්න ඕනේ. හොඳේ? transport cost එක විතරයි අඩු කරන්නේ. දැන් මේ උදාහරණය අනුව southern province එකේ ඒ කියන්නේ අපේ මේ principal market එක as per the volume එතකොට මේ market එකේ fair value එක වෙන්නේ 95යි. දැන් principal market එකේ fair value එක කියන 95. එතකොට අඩු කරන්නේ selling price එකෙන් transport cost. එතකොට most advantageous market is northern province. එතකොට 150න් අඩු කරන්න 20ක්. හරි? එතකොට 130යි. Right? So this is the fair value of the asset. Fair value of the bond. Is that clear? Is that clear? Is that clear?
Yes, sir.
Hmm?
Yes, yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Right, okay. එහෙනම් මෙන්න මේ ගාන හදන්න ටක් ගාලා. There are two markets, ne? Asia and Europe. Volume has been given. Selling price, transport cost, and the transaction cost given. හරි විනාඩි දෙක තුනක් මම දෙන්නම් ඕගොල්ලන්ට උත්තරේ ලියන්න ටක් ගාලා.
ada. Hasil kata. Hai. Bicara kan. Hai.
Hmm?
Bicara kan.
Hmm?
Ada kalau lecet.
Hmm?
Ada lecet kalau.
Kan?
Lecet kalau.
Hmm?
Nah, Srilanka Luna. Dan medan yang tiba, wah itu dakinya. Kami medan
Right. Did you answer for this question? Can I discuss the answer? Yes. Can I discuss? Hello? Are you there?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. What is the principal market in this case?
Asia.
Asia, because 100,000 volume, Asia is the principal market. In that market, what is the fair value? What is the fair value?
21,000, sir.
21,000. Only transport cost should be deducted. Without transport cost එක 21,000 කිව්වේ කවුද? වැරදිනේ 21,000 නම් වැරදි. මම පැහැදිලිව කිව්වා when it comes to fair value calculation, you should deduct only transport cost, not the transaction cost. හරි. ඒතර කීයද fair value එක in the Asian principal market? කීයද?
23,000.
23,000. හරි. හරි. 23,000. හරි. අන්න C එක කියවන්න. Assume that the volume information not available. And volume information not available. assume kara. Determine the fair value of the asset in the absence of the volume information. In the absence of the volume information, you need to calculate the fair value of the most advantageous market. The most advantageous market is Asia or Europe.
Euro.
In Asian market, the net proceed is 21,000. European market, 22,000.
2000.
The European market is the most advantageous market. A market is fair value.
24,000.
24,000. Very good. 25,000 minus 1,000. Then 24,000 can be received. Hurry. That is the fair value. Hurry. That's the answer. Market one or the Asia market is the principal market. Visitunda high. Hurry. Then most advantageous market. 22,000. Right. The fair value is 24,000. Right. Please do this. Please do this one. I will give you 5 minutes. 5 minutes for you to read the question and answer. Right, we'll discuss the answer now. Okay, Delta PLC is a diversified business that owns a division which sells agricultural tractors. It is considering selling this agricultural division and wishes to measure the fair value of the inventory of tractors for the purpose of the sale. The markets currently exists for tractors. Delta has transacted regularly in all four markets. 31st March 2022, Delta wishes to find the fair value of 200 new tractors. Underline that. 200 new tractors. Tractors 200ක් තියෙනවලු which are identical, සමානයි. The following information is available. Tractors 200ක fair value තමයි හොයන්න ඕනේ. ඉතින් මේකක තොරතුරු තමයි දීලා තියෙන්නේ. Sale price per tractor 14,50,000. In Northern Province, Western 1,480,000. Western Province 1.5 million, Southern Province 1.75 million, 1.475 million. The total volume of the tractors sold in the market 6,000, 1,000, 2,005, 3,005. What is the principal market? What is the principal market?
Northern.
Yes, Northern Province is the principal market. So what is the fair value in that market? What is the fair value in that market? Takkalakian. Sale price is 1,450,000. Transport cost එක අඩු කරන්න 3,200යි. 1,446,800 multiplied by 200. How many millions? 289 million. 289.36 million. Did you get that? In the principal market, fair value 289,360,000. Did you get this answer? In the principal market, fair value for 200 tractors.
Yes, sir.
Right. In the most advantageous market, what is the most advantageous market in out of these four?
Western.
Western. කීය දෙන්නේ එකේ? හරියට බැලුව නේද? එතකොට 1.5 million minus both transaction cost as well as transport cost should be deducted. එතකොට වැඩිපුර වෙන්නේ Western එකද?
Yes, sir.
Yes, right. එහෙනම් Western එකේ fair value කීයද? What is the fair value? 1.5 million minus transport cost. Transport cost 6,000. $1,400,000
$94,000.
1,494,000. This is the fair value of a tractor multiplied by 200. 298,800,000. Right? So this is the fair value of that market. Hari? ඒක තමයි උත්තරේ. දැන් මොකද්ද මෙයා කියන්නේ? Delta wishes to value the tractor at 1,485,250 per tractor as this is the highest net proceed per tractor. එහෙම ගන්න බෑ. That's wrong. Delta would like to obtain advice as to whether this valuation would be acceptable under SLFRS 13 fair value measurements. Now you can understand this is not acceptable, this thought. Delta wishes to value කියන එක ඒතරේ වැරදීනේ. 14,85,250ට යන්න බෑ. So you need to say 1.45 1,485,250 is not acceptable as per SLFRS 13. As per SLFRS 13, principal market is this, most advantageous market is this, then the fair value of each market calculated as follows. You need to provide the answer. Right. Now you can read the answer. Okay. Another would be the principal market. 289,360,000 rupees. හරිනේ fair value එක අපි හැදුවා. Right. Okay. In the absence of the principal market, the data volume information, we can identify the most advantageous market. We did the most advantageous market as well. Right. Okay. Now we'll talk about the next part under definition, buyers and sellers. So I have discussed what are the features of buyers and sellers independent of each other, not related parties. Not related parties. If we are doing transaction with the related parties, most of the cases that transaction would occur not on the fair value. Not on the fair value. Knowledgeable with reasonable understanding about the assets or liability and the transaction. Willing to enter into transaction, able to enter into transaction. So these features are, now you can understand. Right. The market participants, I already told you this is market-based measurement, right? Not the entity-specific measurement, right? Entity-specific measurement. Measurement should be based on the assumption that market participants would use when pricing the assets or liability. Market participants would use when pricing of the assets or liabilities. Right? Market participants act in their economic best interest. Right. These are the steps in fair value measurement. These are the steps in fair value measurement. First, we need to identify the item to be measured. The item being measured, unit of account. Right. Then for the non-financial asset, you know what financial assets? What financial assets are? Right. For non-financial asset, we need to use highest and best use of asset. Highest and best use. So please note that word, highest and best use. Highest and best use for the non-financial asset like buildings, lands, motor vehicles. Those are non-financial assets. So we need to use highest and best use. And third, the market in which the orderly transaction would take place. The market need to be identified. Then appropriate valuation technique also need to be identified. There are 4 valuation techniques. So 3 valuation techniques, right? So that is under 4th step in fair value measurement. Right, we'll take one by one. Determine the assets or liability that is subject to measurement. එතකොට දැන් ඔයාලා දන්නවා land වෙන්න පුළුවන්, motor vehicle වෙන්න පුළුවන්, buildings වෙන්න පුළුවන්. So we need to measure it at fair value. We need to go through, we need to follow the steps. The fair value would be based on the location of the asset, condition of the asset, any restrictions on assets, right? Is asset or liability a standalone asset or group of assets, right? So these conditions would be factors for the measuring assets or liability. Moving forward to step number 2. Highest and best use for non-financial asset. Right. Now, particularly for the non-financial assets, property, plant, equipment, land, building, motor vehicle, furniture, or else intangible assets, softwares, patent rights. If we use fair value, then we need to identify the highest and best use of the asset. The perception from the market participants' perception or the perspective. Market participant perspective, right? What is the highest and best use of the asset? Highest and best use has been defined in the standard. That's the definition. Use of non-financial asset by market participants that would maximize the value of the asset or group of assets and liabilities within which the asset would be used. Now, for an instance, I would say, let's say there is a land. There is a land. We do nothing with the land. We kept that particular land for capital appreciation. Right? There is another land nearby. There is a construction. There is a construction and so they are going to rent that building out. They are going to rent that building out. Right? Then highest and best use. Highest and best use. What now? What are the things that we can do to enhance the value? Enhance the value. Now read this highest and best use. Non-financial asset but market participant that would maximize the value of the asset or group of assets within which the asset would be used. If we use this particular asset, how we can maximize the value? There are alternatives no, to maximize the value. So that we need to identify. Through that, we can identify the highest and best use. Highest and best use should be physically possible, legally permissible, and financially feasible. වෙන්න බයිනේ highest and best. දැන් අපි හිතමු අපි මේ යම් කිසි asset එකක් තියාගෙන අපිට නීති අනුකූල නොවන විදිහට හම්බ කරන්න බෑනේ. We should align with the legal framework. Physically possible, like physically possible වෙන්න ඕනේ, ප්‍රායෝගික වෙන්න ඕනේ. කරන්න භෞතිකව කරන්න පුළුවන් වෙන්න ඕනේ. legally permissible and financially feasible. අපිට කරන්න බැරි ඒවා කරන්න බැහැනේ. යා කරන්න බැරි ඒවා කරන්න බෑනේ. ඒ නිසා අපිට කරන්න පුළුවන් විදියට what is the highest and best use of the asset. Highest and best use is not based on how the entity currently using it. ඒක නෙමෙයි බලන්න පුතා. මේක හොඳට මතක තියාගන්න. දැනට ආයතනය දැනට කරන එක නෙමෙයි බලන්නේ. Highest and best use is not based on how the entity is currently using it. Right? It is based on the perspective of the market participant. That is based on the market participant. And buyers, sellers are there. එයාලගේ view එක අනුව මොකක් කරොත්ද හොඳ. It is based on perspective of the market participant. Example, land on which factory currently stand should be used for residential housing development. The market participants like, make a building head office එක. We can earn more if we rent this building as a residential house, residential apartment maybe. දැක්කද වැඩි? දැනට currently residential apartment එකක් නෙමෙයි, currently head office. But market participants are thinking that if we use for the residential housing development, we can this building can earn more money, highest maximize the value. Is that clear? Up to that step number 2, did you understand that? The highest and best use කියන එක තේරුණාද? Did you understand highest and best use? If not, please let me know. Did you understand? මම අහන්නේ ඔයාලට තේරුණාද නැද්ද කියලා.
Yes, sir.
All right, okay. Right. Now we'll talk about valuation premise that appropriate. Look at this. In combination, when market participants would obtain maximum benefit, principally through using the asset in combination with other assets and liabilities as a group. Now, I told you PGU, cash generating unit. If that entity should use all the assets and liabilities together, then we need to consider this combination, right? The asset will be sold as an individual asset, not as a group. Will be used by the market participant in conjunction with the other assets. Stand alone, that means individual asset. When market participants would obtain maximum benefit principally through using the asset on stand-alone basis. That means if we can use that respective asset individually, let's say land, only land. Right? Earlier I told you a bus. In order to use the bus, we have to have a permit as well. And it's very difficult to measure in stand-alone way. We need to use combination of other assets. Combination of other assets. So that's the meaning. Right. Now we can do this practice question. Explain how the entity would determine the highest and best use of the land. Highest and best use of the land. Read this and try to provide the answer. I will give you a couple of minutes. So at the same time, you can take a small break as well. I have not given you the break. So we'll take 5 to 10 minutes break. If you have not taken your dinner, you can take your dinner and come back quickly and answer for this question. Right? Take 10 minutes. Right. Welcome back after the small break. Yeah. What is the answer for this question? Let me read. The required thing, explain how the entity would determine the highest and best use of the land. Now you need to understand, right? I hope you understood the explanation and how to identify the highest and best use, right? The entity acquires a land in business combination. The land is currently developed for industrial use as a site for a factory. Current usage is site for a factory. Current use of land is presumed to be the highest and best use unless the market or other factors suggest different use. Nearby site have recently been developed for residential use as site for high-rise apartment buildings. Based on the development and recent zoning changes, the entity determines that the land currently used as a site for factory could be developed as site for residential use. That is high-rise apartment buildings, because market participants would consider the potential to develop the site for residential use when pricing the land, right? Okay, now you can understand the highest and best use need to be determined the perception of the market participants. Highest and best use is not the current use. What is the potential using to maximize the value of the respective asset? Right? You understood it. Right. Now, look at the answer. The possible uses. Possible uses made into vacant site for residential purpose, that's a standalone asset, no? Fair value of the land calculated net of the cost demolition of the factory and cost to conversion into vacant site, right? So that's the fair value. That's the fair value of that particular land. Continuation for the current use as a factory. Then we need to see the fair value in combination. Fair value of both land and the factory based on the selling of these assets to market participants who use these assets for the business purpose in conjunction with their other assets, right? So that's the way of calculating the fair value of the respective asset. Okay, so possible users of the respective asset should be identified first. Then highest and best use would be residential apartment, high-rise residential apartment. That is the highest and best use, right? So what the first possible use is made into vacant site for residential purpose. Then the fair value is calculated for the land on this way, net of the cost of demolition. In Galle ibat karan site factory and other cost to conversion into vacant site. Vacant site. So that's the fair value. I hope you understood this. Right. Then we'll talk about third step. Determine the principal or most advantageous market. You know how to do that. Principal market is based on the highest volume. Most advantageous market should be determined when the absence of the volume data, we can identify the most advantageous market by deducting transaction cost and the transport cost from the selling price of respective markets. Right. The entity not make an exhaustive search. The market is usually sells in its presumed to the principal market unless contrary evidence exists, right? So normally, we assume that principal market can be identified based on the volume data. Right, now last step, determine the appropriate valuation technique. I told you there are three methods, three approaches for the valuation. Number one, market approach. Number two, income approach. Number three, cost approach. Let me discuss one by one. You can see a strict mark for the last two, income approach and the cost approach. Income and cost approach based on the market participants. Right? Market approach, we can see the fair value based on the identical items in the market. Prices that generate by market transaction involving identical or comparable assets or liabilities. So that's the market approach. Let's say we are measuring the fair value of a motor vehicle. We can see the market price of same type of motor vehicle in the market. So that's market approach. What is income approach? Income approach in says if we use that particular asset, how much that we can generate future, year 1, year 2, year 3, year 4, year 5, likewise, right? Then we can get the present value of it. We should we should determine the cash flows that we can generate from the asset, take the present value of that. That's called income approach. Right? Cost approach means replacement cost. If we replace the same asset, what would be the amount to be incurred? That is the cost approach. Right? Right. Then we'll talk about what are the considerations that we need to think about before selecting these approaches. Selecting a technique from above three methods clearly a matter of professional judgment. That's purely a judgment of the respective parties in an organization. Okay, that will determine based on the available information. As I mentioned earlier, there are levels. Level 1, level 2, level 3. If we have observable input, if we have available data, we can say that is level 1, right? Level 1. So if we have available data, we should go with level 1 data set, level 1. That's accuracy is high. If we don't have observable data, then we need to move to unobservable inputs. We need to estimate something like that. Right? Those are level 2 and level 3. Okay. So, and other thing is when we are valuing assets, we need to use that valuation technique consistently. 1 year, one method, another year, another method, then consistency is not there, then the problematic. So it is better to use consistent method for the valuation. Right. Observable, unobservable. Observable means, based on the observable market data, for an instance, let's say the share valuation, share investment, that fair value is there, observable, right? We know the market price. of a share. So fair value is readily available. So that's observable data. But for some assets, we don't have such observable data. Market data not available. Then we need to focus on unobservable inputs, level 2 and level 3, particularly level 3. So look at this. Quoted prices unadjusted in active market for identical assets or liabilities at the measurement date. Input 1 or level 1. Level 2 inputs other than quoted prices include within level 1 that are observable for assets or liability either directly or indirectly. But we don't have quoted prices. It's level 2. The level 3 unobservable inputs of the assets or liability. Level 3 unobservable. So we need to estimate and take. Right. Some examples are given for level 1, level 2, level 3. You can have a look. You can have a look on this. Level 1, commonly used for the publicly traded shares, brand new vehicles, gold and crude oil. Level 2, commonly used for assets such as land, building, shares in private limited company. Right? We don't have publicly traded information. So therefore, we cannot say that's level 1. So that's in between level 1 and level 3. That's level 2. Level 3, cash generated trademarks. We need so available data is not, observable data is not available. So level 3 input. We need to forecast, we need to estimate to measure fair value in such level. The lowest priority for the unobservable inputs, right? So as we need to try to get observable either level 1 and level 2. If not available, then we can move to level 3. Priority should be given to first two. Now we have taken extracts of financial statements in a bank. Now you can see the group and the bank, how they have disclosed level 1, level 2, level 3. Now in this case, level 1 disclosure, level 1 valuations are not available. Level 2, yes, available for currency swaps, forward contracts, spot contract and currency options. Level 3, lands and building level 3. Okay. So that's how we need to disclose in the annual reports, financial statements. So the last, you can see disclosures. There are items that we need to disclose in the financial statements. As you have seen, valuation techniques and the input levels using significant unobservable input level 3. Right, that's the end of SLFRS 13. That's the end. Yep, we have discussed almost 3 hours. Yes, I will share this lecture note. I will upload this lecture note to LMS, right? You can download from there. Okay. Can I upload now? Okay, sir. How about the attendance? How about the attendance? Do you need to mark the attendance?
Yes, sir.
Right. So we'll mark the attendance now. Hope you can see my screen, huh? Right. First, I will sell FRS 13. Right. Uploaded. You can download it. Now we'll go to attendance. Where's the attendance? This one, right? Mark your attendance here. Hmm. URL is there. බලමු. එතනින් ගිහිල්ලා හදන්න බෑ. They have not set it, it seems. I don't know how to set this. attendance. We'll go and see. Right. Okay. Then since you are, you join online, they can see the attendance, it seems, through the recordings. Right? Batch representative may chutak valuada make
Excuse me,
an
සර් ඒගොල්ලෝ සාමාන්‍යයෙන් මේ ඔන්ලයින් මේ ලෙක්චර් එක කරාම මේ මොනවාද රෙකෝඩින් එකෙන් ගන්න සර් ඇටෙන්ඩන්ස්
all right. Ena ප්‍රශ්නයක් නැහැනේ.
ඉෂු එකක් නෑ සර්.
Right. Okay. Okay, then thank you very much for joining. Next week we would be meeting physically, right? Next week you are having classes, right?
තාම සර් මේ ලෙක්චර් ෂෙඩියුල් එක ෂෙයා කරේ නෑ.
හරි හරි. එතකොට ඔයාලට presentation අපි deadline දීලා නේද තියෙන්නේ? Group assignment. Did I give the instructions for the group assignment? මම දුන්නද group assignment instructions ඔයාලට?
නෑ සර් දීලා නෑ සර්.
හරි. Right. Here what you need to do is do you දැන් ඔයාලා දැනටමත් groups තියෙනවද?
ඒ කියන්නේ සර් අපේ එකේ ඒ කියන්නේ අපේ වීකෙන්ඩ් බැච් එකේ දැනට ගෲප්ස් තියෙනවා සර් 8 ඒ කියන්නේ මෙම්බර්ස්ලා 8 දෙනා ගානේ ගෲප්ස් තියෙනවා සර්.
හරි එහෙනම් අපි ඒ groups ටිකම ගමුද?
ඉෂු එකක් නෑ සර්.
Right. ඒ groups ටිකම අරගෙන මම දැන් මේ කියන්නේ instructions ටික, right? Since this is recorded, then everyone can rewatch them. What you need to do is හරි මට කියන ඔක්කොම groups කීයක් තියෙනවද කියලා?
අපේ 16D වීකෙන්ඩ් එකේ සර් ගෲප් තියෙනවා 9ක් සර් 8ක් 8ක්.
8ක්. එතකොට 18A එක
18 එකේ සර් 3යි.
8යි 3යි 11යි නේ.
ඔව්.
8යි 3යි 11යි. පොඩ්ඩක් ඉන්න මං ඒ 11ට මම දෙනවා topics 11ක්. හරි? Right. Right. ඔන්න බලා ගන්න. මං ඉස්සෙල්ලා 16 එකේ 16 D WE group 1 group 2 group 3 group 4 group 5 group 6 group 7 group 8 group 9 නේද කිව්වේ?
ගෲප් 8ක් තියෙනවා සර්.
8යි නේ. හරි 8යි. එතකොට 18A group 1 group 2 group 3. Right. Now here I hope you are aware about IFRS S1. IFRS S1. There are 4 steps. IFRS 1 is for general guidelines for the sustainability reporting standards, IFRS S1, right? So you need to give, you need to study about IFRS S1 and you need to give the presentation on IFRS S1. IFRS S1, first 2 steps. 2 steps, first 2. Then IFRS S1, second 2 steps. You need to discuss about them, right? Group 3, IFRS S2, climate change. First 2, IFRS S2, second 2 steps, right? Group number 5, IFRS 13, disclosures. IFRS 13 disclosures. Group 6, IFRS 7 disclosures. Group 7, LKS 41 disclosures. Group 8, LKAS 33 disclosures. Here group 1, SLFRS 12 disclosures. Disclosures for other entities. Group 2, LKS 21 disclosures. LKS 21 disclosures. Group 3 in 18A, LKAs 19, employee benefits disclosures, right? So these are the allocated areas for each and every group. What you need to do is you need to discuss about the allocation, disclosures. What are the disclosures as per the standard, right? Then number 2, what you need to do is you should, particularly for the standards, group 5 onwards, particularly for the standards, you need to select a company, public listed company, right? And you have to have a discussion with respective person, maybe CFO, maybe the respective person of that organization about the disclosures of these respective standards, right? You have to have an interview. You need to visit that company. Visit. You need to visit as a group. You can visit and see. So you should focus now. Let's say IFRS 13. You have selected LB Finance. You can go and discuss about IFRS 13, how they are doing it, how they are disclosing. So you can get the practical exposure, right? You need to show them in the presentation, right? Before going there, you should read the entire standard and discuss. එතකොට ඒගොල්ලොත් එක්ක කතා කරන්න ඕනේ. හරිද? විසිට් එකක් යන්න ඕනේ. විසිට් එකේ evidences ලස්සන දාන්න ඕනේ. ඒවා information you need to present in the presentation. මේ ටිකේ now these are compulsory to adopt by top 100 companies. Top 100 companies in terms of capital market capitalization. එතකොට ඔගොල්ලොත් company එකක් select කරන්න ඕන. Now for an instance, LB Finance adopted top 100 company. Most of the banks are top 100 companies. So you can select one company and you need to inquire about the sections which are allocated for your group. IFRS S1, IFRS S2, IFRS S2 එකේ ඔය තියෙන පළවෙනි sections ටික group 1, දෙවෙනි section ටික group 2 එකට. හරි? ඔය ටිකනේ කරන්න තියෙන්නේ. ඒ හා සම්බන්ධ කාරණා ටික ඔයාලා ඔක්කොම ටික යන්න ඕන බැංක් එක අදාළ කම්පැනියට ගිහිල්ලා කතා කරන්න. If you wish, you can take some evidences, video, photos. But remember, in the presentation, everyone is given equal opportunity to present. That means I would select randomly, random selection. Random selection. So everyone should have equal ability to present any part of the presentation. Any part of the presentation. Random presentation. Random කියන්නේ random selection of the presenters. අටක් ඉන්නවනම් මට හිතනවා මම තුන් දෙනෙක්ගෙන් presentation එක ගන්නවා. අනිත් අය defending for the questions. Defending on the questions. හරි? I will read the index numbers of the group. Hurry, and you need to present. Okay? That's how we do because of the chat GTP and all. So evaluation method has been changed slightly. Random presentation, random selection of the presenters and other non-selectors should defend the questions. The presentation 15 minutes. Presentation 15 minutes, Q&A another 15 minutes. So altogether 30 minutes allocated for the each presentation group. Correct? I will give you two when your examination. exam එක?
Sir, May 18 පටන් ගන්නවා.
May 18 නේ. එතකොට පුතා අපිට කවද්ද ගන්න පුළුවන්? After 2 weeks.
එහෙම පුළුවන් ඒ මම චුට්ටක් බලන්නද කරන්නේ.
Right. අපි 2 weeks වලින් පස්සේ ගමු එනං ඈ. Okay නේ?
හරි sir, sure.
ලොකු වැඩක් නෑ පොඩි වැඩක් දුන්නේ. එක standard එකේ disclosures ටික read කරලා there are 8 members, allocate the activities to be done and visit a company. That's it. And make the presentation. Yeah.
So අපිට කියන්නේ දැන් අර company visit එකට online meeting එකක් arrange කරොත් issue එකක් නැද්ද sir?
ඉතින් ඒක නිකන් අර මොකක්ද එක වගේනේ පුතා අවස්ථාවක් දුන්නාම එදාටවත් යන්න ගිහිල්ලා පොඩ්ඩක් ඉන්ඩස්ට්‍රි එකේ වෙන පොඩ්ඩක් බලන්න. I prefer physical.
Okay sir.
හරි ඒකටවත් යන්න බැරි නම් මොකක්ද ඉතින් මේ වැඩේ? නේද? යාළුවෝ ටිකත් එක්ක පොඩ්ඩක් ට්‍රිප් එකක් වගේ යන්න ගිහිල්ලා ඒපයි වෙනේම බලලා එහෙම යන්න හැමෝම. online එක එච්චර සාර්ථක නෑනේ පුතා. නේ? You should feel the company නේ. You should see the industry. You should discuss with the CFO, COO, CEO. You have to have connection, networking. එතකොට මේ assignment එකෙන් එක දෙයක් නෙමෙයි බලාපොරොත්තු වෙන්නේ. මේවා ලකුණු දෙන්න විතරක් දෙන ඒවා නෙමෙයි. Right? So we are expecting to grow most of the skills. You need to have an appointment. You need to make an appointment. You need to write emails. But soft skills උත් වැදගත්. How to deal with people, how to communicate. ඒවා අනිත් subjects වල ඉගෙනගෙන ඇති. ඒවා use කරලා ඒවා මේවා කරගන්න යන්න හොඳට ඇඳ පැළඳගෙන යන්න ඒවත් මේකේ learning තමයි. ගිහිල්ලා ඒවා photos ගන්න අරගෙන evidences පෙන්නන්න වීඩියෝ කරගන්න අවසර අරගෙන ඒගොල්ලෝන්ගෙන් නිකම්ම හොරාට රංජන රාමනායක වගේ වීඩියෝ රෙකෝඩ් කරන්න යන්න එපා. You should get the permission and record. If they give the permission, you can do it. Right? You can say this is an assignment. So can we record for the purpose of valuation, let's say? එහෙම අහලා අවසර අරගෙන polite විදියට So you would be applying a lot of learnings in the degree, right? So good that you asked that particular question. Thank you. Any other questions? Any other? Right. Please take a snapshot of this slide. මේ whiteboard එකේ ගන්න groups වල බෙදිලා තියෙනවනේ. දාලා share කරන්න මටත් share කරන්න. මාත් එකක් අරගෙන තියාගන්න.
Sir, report and presentation දෙකම නේද? Sir,
මම
presentation
mainly
විතරද?
focus කරන්න පුතා presentation තමයි, but you should provide the presentation slides as well. report එක නම් ඕන වෙන්නේ නැහැ. මට presentation slides එක තිබ්බනම් ඇති. But when you come to the presentation, you should bring the presentation slide. හරි? print එකක් දාගෙන ඉන්න presentation slides ටික. Please remember you need to include the name list of the students, the group members with the index numbers. එක slide එකක් ඒකට දාගන්න. දකුණු දාන්න එපා. හරි නේද ඒක? presentation slides එක තිබ්බනම් ඇති. Okay?
Okay, sir.
Okay, sir.
Right. Okay then. ගමු මේකේ පින්තූරයක්. හරි. Okay then. We can wind up for the day. Yeah. If you don't have question, we can wind up now. Again, I would like to thank everyone who participated today's lecture, and I hope you got something about SLFRS 13. You can read further for further learning. You can read the standard, right? And go through the lecture note, lecture material again and again. Then you would be learning about SLFRS 13, right? Okay, thank you very much then. Good night.